Hello, everyone. It's Kelsey here, and today I have something a little bit different to share with you guys. I have seen this done on Nicole McGorrick's YouTube channel, where she takes some of the Prima Julie Nutting um, dolls or mixed media dolls, and she turns them into kind of, I don't want to say a layout, um, but she turns them into, I don't know, just this little paper pieced um, I don't know, just spread, I guess. So, but I think it's really cute and I decided to try it because I've got some watercolor pencils that I wanted to play with, and I've got the doll stamps, and I think it's just a great way to use up some of your scraps and whatnot. So, I'll kind of walk you through my process and just share some tips that I learned and what I would possibly do differently in the future. So I learned this from Nicole McGorrick that she always stamps her dolls on patterned or text paper, simply because she um, thinks it gives some texture to the doll's face since they don't actually have um, any faces drawn on them, and it just gives their skin a little bit more of a textured look. And I have to say, I agree. Even with the watercolor pencil, I was just careful to use a little less water since I'm not stamping them on like a watercolor paper. But the text paper held up just fine. And I do think it really lent the skin just a little something extra. So, as you can see, you can stamp a lot of dolls on this paper. The dolls are very skinny and tall, so like I said, you can fit a lot of them on one piece of paper. So, I think this is a very cost-effective um, art journaling or um, playing around. I don't know. It kind of reminds me of playing with paper dolls as a child, but I think this is a very creative, cost-effective hobby to put these paper dolls together. Um, or mixed media dolls. So anyway, basically, you saw me stamp the doll on this text paper, and then I stamped her outfit on a couple of other patterned papers, and now I'm just coloring this doll in with a few different skin tones. Now, I'm not very good at coloring. I'm not very good with colors in general, as far as knowing like what skin tones go with what. And at first, I didn't like the skin tone that I chose for the doll, but I ended up thinking it was all right. I probably would have gone with a peachier tone. This one was kind of a yellowy brown color. And part of that was probably the paper because this paper is more yellowed. So it turns out all right. Not my favorite coloring job ever. But like I said, I'm really not very good at it. I'm really new to it. But I thought this was a fun way to practice and at the same time use up some of my scraps and just get a little bit more creative. So I'm just dipping these Primo watercolor pencils in water. You can dip them directly into water, and that's my favorite way of playing with them. And I learned on some of the dolls, it was nicer to just color over, like on the hair, where I was trying to layer some different colors into the hair. It was easier to put the first layer on with water and then just kind of draw on the second layer without any water, just color with the colored pencil. And I think um, I could have blended it out with a paintbrush a little bit, but for the most part, um, it was fine just doing it with the watercolor pencil. You also saw that I tried to go over there with like a lighter peach tone just to kind of lighten up her skin, but it just didn't really work. And it was just kind of pilling up the paper a little bit. So I just stopped while I was ahead and knew that next time I would just do it a little bit differently. I would definitely recommend testing your colors out on a piece of plain white paper. The colors aren't necessarily true to what they look like or what the ends of the pencils look like. It's just not necessarily the exact same color, so I would just recommend testing it out. So, one way that I really think it's fun to do these dolls is to use 6x6 paper pads, or in this case, I used the 4x6 paper pads from Studio Calico. And I was able to use up some papers that I wouldn't necessarily have used on a layout just because even though I like them, they might not be what I want for Project Life on a Project Life spread, or they just might not be something that I necessarily like the pattern of in my Project Life, but it would look all right in an outfit or something. So as you can see, there is a lot of fussy cutting, but I think that's actually kind of fun. It's fun to do something a little bit different, and it's kind of therapeutic to do fussy cutting if you don't mind it too much. Um, and it's just kind of, I don't know. It's fun to just paper piece it together and pick out the different patterns. And you don't have to be super specific when you're fussy cutting. One thing that I've learned is you are way more picky than anybody that's looking at this would ever be. Um, so I would just recommend go easy on yourself. It's not that big of a deal. So I'm using the Zig two-way glue pen, which I have to admit didn't. This was one of my very first scrapbooking purchases about 7 years ago, 6, 7, 8 years ago. I think it's probably 8 years ago. Anyway, this is one of my first purchases was this Zig two-way glue pen, and I actually didn't really like it very well. So I had set it aside, but it was always just in my my little basket of pencils and glue and scissors and just a weird little basket that I have. And so I started using it again recently, and I have to admit, I really like the Zig two-way glue pen. I think it's actually really um, a great pen, and the glue actually sticks really, really well. So I'm going to have to remember that for some of my smaller projects. Now, you did see me, I kept moving the Stays on ink pad around. That was just to kind of hold those paper pieces down, just because they are a little bit thin and delicate. And I just wanted to put something a little bit heavier on there just to kind of weigh the paper down and give that glue a chance to settle. But so far, I was actually very impressed with how well the glue held. So I'll have to see how that holds up over time, but for now, I'm pretty impressed. And I've been really picky about glues lately. So now I'm just fussy cutting out the entire doll and just going around everything and adding the clothes onto her before kind of gives her a little bit more stability when you're trying to cut the whole thing out. And she just cuts out fairly easily. I'm going to get out my X-Acto knife here in a minute and cut out some of the parts, like the inner arm and in between her legs. And um, I should have grabbed a craft mat, but I'm not really that picky about my desk. My desk um, is it was like $35 and it's a heavy duty desk and it's got paint and scratches and everything all over it. But if you're working at your kitchen table or if you have a nice desk or you just don't want to mar your desk up, I would definitely recommend getting a cutting board or a cutting mat to cut her on. But I actually didn't mark up my doll any. Um, so then I've got this flower. It came in one of my hip kits recently, either the March or the April one, and I decided to put it on her as kind of like a little headband or a little hair accessory. And I thought it looked really cute. And I was inspired to use these colors not only because this is what I had in my 4x6 paper pad stash, but it also coordinated with the background. And the background is also from my scrap stash, whatever you want to call it, just where I keep scraps of larger paper. And so it worked out really well that this is a pattern I might not have used as a background because you guys know floral is not necessarily my thing. And the back of it is this beautiful pink ombre wood grain like planks, but it was going the wrong direction. But I loved it so much whenever I got finished with this doll that I might actually use it on a different spread. But anyway, so in Nicole McGorrick's videos, she actually puts a lot more detail into the background and the scene that her doll is in. But unfortunately, I just don't have that much stuff, or I just wasn't really thinking ahead too much. So I will hopefully have more detail in the background for my dolls in the future. But for now, this is all that I've got. So I layered up some of that gray paper just to kind of make some hills or some grass or some ground just for her to stand on. And I really do think that makes a difference. I used to think that it didn't, but seeing her with and without the little hills of paper definitely, I think, made the difference. Um, so, and I like that the gray has some text on it. It just makes it a little bit different. I really like it. And again, it's just a way to use up some of that 4x6 paper pad that's just been sitting around because it's a few months older. So then I pulled out this frame It's from Maggie Holmes. And again, floral, not normally my favorite, but I thought it worked really well on this layout. There are already some floral elements in here, and the colors went with it fairly well. So I just decided to back it with some of that gray paper, use up that entire 4x6 sheet, and then I put this sticker that was just in my stash on there, and I thought it was kind of a springy looking layout. And then I'm going to spell out the word April on top of the gray hills. And that's pretty much going to wrap it up. Like I said, my background and scenery was very, very simple. Hopefully, I will get more detailed. But for now, I was just really excited. I've been wanting to start this paper doll project since the beginning of the year. So even though I started in April, I think maybe I might go back and do January, February, and March if I get to it. If I don't, it's not a big deal. But if I do get to it, then that's like a fun way to use up maybe some of my winter themed products or my Kiss Kiss collection from Crate Paper. I love their collection. It's very Valentine's-y, and it would be a great way to use some of that stuff up and still have a cute little layout. So I'm going to put this in my 6x8 album that I purchased, I believe, at Michael's. And I'm just using two types of glue to glue the girl down just so I could get all the little tiny little pieces covered. And I am going to outline those white letters because they kind of blended into that gray and white background. So anyway, if you want to see a picture of this, head on over to my Instagram and I will see you guys again soon. Have a great day.